This video is sponsored by the Biscuit Barrel. The Biscuit Barrel are a comedy sketch group that I'm a member of, and while making this video, we've been out at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. If you're nearby, come see our show, or check out some of our digital sketches available down in the video description. Playmobil movie, or The Angry Birds 2? Which one is the most unnecessary movie adaptation? The knockoff Lego movie, or the outdated viral hit? Turns out, it's neither. What kids truly wanted was a live-action remastering of the classic Spanish lesson, Dora the Explorer. I mean, why is this a thing? Whose idea was this, and why did I not hate it? Dora the Explorer is a weird film. I mean, I think anyone who's seen the trailer can agree to that, but it really goes into some odd directions in the full thing. But at the same time, a lot of those weird choices were actually kinda cool directorial choices that they chose to explore. Like, how weird is Dora the Explorer when taken out of the context of a kid's cartoon? Or how out of place is it to have a talking fox running around? Now, while I admit that I kinda like some of the directions they decided to take Dora the Explorer, the plot is something else. So the movie starts off with Dora and Diego as kids driving through the jungle like a classic episode. The map is there and backpack, Boots runs up behind them and Swiper makes a brief appearance too, and then it reveals to be them just playing like normal kids in a cardboard box. Though Boots, for whatever reason, is real, though Diego's Jaguar is not. Whatever. We learn of the mystery of the place that they want to find, you know, the big secret thing you always find at the end of a treasure film. And Diego is transferring away to the city, and Dora and her parents are staying in the jungle. Fast forward 10 years, and Dora's still Dora, though a lot more technically skilled survival-wise. And choosing to talk into a GoPro, because why not? Even though they don't keep up with that, and it was really just for that opening sequence. Could have been something more, but we'll get to that later. With her discovering a major clue, she pushes the idea of finding that mysterious place, only for her parents to say she needs to make friends and go to school. So reluctantly, she does. And Dora being Dora means she embarrasses a changed Diego, has some wacky Dora moments, and bumps into 2 more students to add to her roster team, for some reason. Several big events pop up, yada yada yada, the 4 end up being kidnapped, taken back to the jungle, and try to discover the secret of the mysterious place they want to find. And in plenty of ways you can keep up with that plot, but it certainly feels a little unpolished in places. Like, the flashback to when they were young works great, and perfectly fits into the idea that Dora just hasn't changed from her kid-focused roots. But once she ends up in the city and at school, the film just kinda jumps off the deep end. The fact that Dora goes to the city at all is already a bit of a stretch, considering the plot of the film actually takes place back in the jungle, but also, once she's there, every major event feels like it happens back to back. Like, she has her classic day 1 of school where she meets the 2 bonus background characters, whatever. Next thing we see is some big dance going on so Dora can wear a star and dance unfittingly and get in an argument with Diego, and that's all that sequence really achieves. And then after that, we then see the class immediately going to a school trip at a museum. And I get that this takes place over a few weeks, but the jumping from event to event feels a little forced. And even when arriving in the jungle again, via delivery this time, the locations sometimes still felt like they just sort of popped into place. Like, they first appear in a military-esque base with a lot of distant land before any trees. They escape via car, and then in the next shot they're in the middle of a tall field, which feels like it would be like miles away from the last location. Also, once they actually start the search for Dora's parents, who by the way were kidnapped, hence the hunting in the first place, they just sort of find their car and follow their tracks. Even though I swear in the scene just before, the plan was to go to Diego's parents and think things through logically. It's just kind of a sharp turn to the right there that sort of threw me off. The majority of the tracking sections all look pretty samey, so at least that makes sense. Still though, this plot does seem to hop and skip to where it needs to be. Though another weird little blip on this Dora the Explorer movie is the lack of consistency. I mean, this point really doesn't matter to anyone other than me, but is this supposed to be the real world where Dora is the odd one out and she just doesn't fit outside of the cartoony realms of her imagination? Or is this a fantasy world where Dora is in the right most of the time and it's just ordinary people don't quite fit into place in the wild, wild jungle? Because the movie swaps between those 2 choices consistently. Or inconsistently. It starts already with Boots and the Jaguar, but also Swiper. He's just one of the goons for the bad mercenaries who are proper humans who kidnap the kids and are hunting for the parents to claim the mysterious prize themselves. And he really doesn't fit in well. For a start, he just looks like Fantastic Mr. Fox on a sugar rush in his own little bubble, but also he just acts so completely differently to everyone else. He runs along the propeller of airplanes for far too long, he jogs really weirdly considering he's bipedal and the fox isn't, and he's got a completely different voice compared to usual. I mean really different. Nowadays, he's got this strange, suave, muttering accent that again just really doesn't fit into the film at all. And when the main characters finally address him, the part that they point out as being weird is the fact that he's wearing a mask to be anonymous, not the fact that it's a talking bipedal fox with a strangely sensual voice. And continuing on with the unreal world, throughout the journey, there's a good chunk of genuine survival moments that Dora helps the gang get through, like quicksand. As you can imagine, everyone gets caught, and Dora gives real advice on how to appropriately escape quicksand by spreading out your weight distribution. That's kinda cool. But then, at the same time, the crew have to face off against fantastical elements as well, such as a field of giant spore-spitting flowers that must not be touched. And though both ideas weren't exactly bad, I feel I would have preferred every event to feel consistent on whether it's real or not, you know? I don't know. Though actually, that flower sequence especially won me over as they used it as an opportunity to introduce hallucinogenic spores, a classic in any kid's storyline, but the Dora the Explorer movie uses this as an excuse to go right back to its source roots by literally integrating the cartoon animation for a brief amount of time. Obviously, it was mostly just one big reference to the original, but it was an interesting way to try and incorporate it. Though the fact that that presentation is what gave them the confidence to jump over a giant ravine definitely had more steam to run with. Like, once the acid trip is over, Dora is simply being woken up, but I really feel there could have been a funnier payoff by exposing what was actually going on in reality when everyone was tripped out or something, but ah well. Now, obviously, in regard to jokes, this is a kids' film. A very young kids' film. Many of the jokes are pretty lowbrow. Dora's dad imitates rave music for an awkwardly long amount of time. Dora's adult assistant screams at cobwebs and then donks his head on a tree. The gang burst into laughter when stepping in mushy sand makes a fart noise. And there's an entire mini song dedicated to taking a dump in the jungle. But a lot of the time, with those kind of kid movies, there are scattered jokes for the adults to enjoy as they watch with their kids. But in this film, there really isn't a lot of that. At most, there are some lines that are delivered quickly, like Diego saying to Dora before her first day at the high school, he says, "If I don't talk to you all day, don't take it personally, I just want to survive high school, it's a war zone over there." Or something to that effect, I've only seen it once. The only other inkling there really is the multiple talks about mating in the wild, but I mean, that's about it. But in a weird way, it kinda works. I mean, I still enjoyed it, and the handful of the parents I saw in the cinema with me enjoyed it too, I think. It wasn't too crazily cringy if you can handle the type of humor that's in it, though it maybe could have done with something more. I'm not really sure on it, because I also feel like I might feel real uncomfortable with any adult humor in a Dora the Explorer movie. I guess we'll never know how it would have worked. Now, at the end of the day, how would I personally rate this movie? Well, it was clear that the kids who watched the film enjoyed it the most, so functionally, it does what it intends to do, though kids still laugh at flossing in films for some reason. For those who haven't watched Dora the Explorer in 15 years, I think it depends on how dedicated you are to the franchise, I guess. I imagine most people won't really care about this film. It does some interesting directorial choices, but at the same time, it doesn't really stand out. It's interesting, but it's not really cool, you know? It's not a meh of a film, more of a small pin-sized amount better than average, I guess. Now, I ended up fairly enjoying the movie, but as a little bit of extra context, I actually ended up drinking out the night before and came to watch Dora the Explorer early the next morning. I live a very interesting life, I know. So there's a chance that I was still slightly leaning more towards just enjoying anything that was put in front of me. But it also kind of lines up nicely in that if this film pops up on Netflix or something like that, available to watch practically for free, then yeah, I'd probably recommend giving it a look. It makes for a great, albeit a very weird, drinking game. Every time you spot a Dora the Explorer reference, drink! It'll be very effective and hopefully quite fun. Because it's quite fascinating to see how they managed to cram so many elements into a single film. But paying for a full price cinema ticket? Yeah, probably not. And drinking might make it better. But if you do go and see it at the cinema, please bring friends. The amount of side eyes I got from the parents was a feeling I'd never want to repeat. But overall, it's not a bad movie. Not great either, but it's certainly something. It could do with some improvements, and I don't see too much of a Dora the Explorer series being made out of it. But there'll probably be more Nickelodeon films, and if the other film options for the week are any representation, there's gonna be a ton more unneeded kid movies to come. Can't wait for that live-action Clifford the Big Red Dog movie or something. Oh boy. Hopefully that one will have some slightly improved CGI works, because this Dora the Explorer movie certainly stretched its limits in a lot of places.